What's up YouTube, this is Fate, bringing you another deck profile, and today we're going to be going after more of a classic build in the Gravekeepers. Now Gravekeepers has always been one of those builds that when it comes to the anti-meta, this build has been defined as the original anti-meta build. And there's still plenty of stuff in the game that removes itself from the graveyard, as well as target stuff in the graveyard, etc., on top of its normal combo and control plays. This build definitely deserves some spotlight still in the game today with its just natural abilities that has withstood the test of time. And on top of some very interesting text in here to get the consistency up with this build has actually been able to compete with a lot of the other faster builds out there, and I just need to share this with you guys today. So without further ado, let's get started. For the beginning of the lineup, we still run the triple Gravekeepers Commandants, get to Necro Valley as fast as possible. Triple Gravekeeper Recruiters, the searcher that feeds into 99% of all of your speed Gravekeeper plays. Triple Gravekeeper Spy. Sure, it's a flip effect monster, but its ability to special summon the Gravekeepers from the deck is still extremely useful for the game today. Then next we run double Gravekeepers Descendant. Originally tried testing this guy out at 3, ended up bumping him down to 2, just because he facilitates destruction plays at a very rapid pace. But if you get stuck with 2 or 3 of them in your hand turn 1, your speed definitely drops a lot in this build, so cutting him down to 2, you can always special summon this guy with Gravekeeper Spy and other means, so it's not like he's not hardly used in the deck, it's just need to get him down to 2 for more consistency reasons. Next, I run double Gravekeepers Noblemen. Still plenty of battle decks out there, especially with Draco Pals. Say you sell out back row, they focus on the back row and attack your monster. Nobleman is still very relevant with its Destroy Battle effect and its ability to get out other Gravekeepers from the deck to the field. Especially Spy face down to just continue on with those special summoning plays. It's extremely useful. Then for the one-ofs on the Gravekeeper side, we run one Gravekeeper's Heretic. Very nice if you're facing all back row decks and you don't want any of your guys getting nuked, and you could just swing continuously for 1800. One Gravekeeper's Assailant. And when I was testing this build, this guy is extremely effective against Monarchs, so I was extremely pleased with how versatile he is with this build. And one Gravekeeper Shaman, just to provide that really high defensive power, the tribute monster for whenever you need it for those really oddball scenarios. And the ability to also keep a Necro Valley alive on the field and that much more of a control problem is very useful for this build. And then for a support monster right off the bat, I do still run one Malefic Stardust Dragon, as opposed to my earlier variants with this build that I never recorded. I do think Malefic Stardust Dragon, especially in this newer build, has overstayed its welcome. I am thinking about cutting this guy just because Shaman and the Gravekeeper special summon abilities does provide all the protection you need. And Malefic Stardust, especially when you're trying to press for more damage per game, he does stall you up quite a bit despite the 2500 attack power. So if you don't like this guy in the build, I would recommend swapping him out for either a second Assailant or a second Heretic, but I'll just do some more testing and we'll see how that unfolds. And then there are 3 more other support monsters in this build that definitely make this deck a little bit more unique. 2 of those monsters are an old classic, Injection Fairy Lily. And please don't turn off the video at this point, just because I did find a unique tech card and wrinkle in this build to make Injection Fairy Lily highly versatile with this build, with Gravekeepers of all things. And just the natural ability to increase its attack power by 3000 for the mere cost of 2000 life points. Injection Familiar is still a recognizable force on the field that just in sheer attack power, Your opponent can't attack over this nearly as easily as in the past. Still, especially with the average high attack boss monster being 2800, 2850, 3000, and so forth. Fairy Ejection Fairly can take on all of those, and it's definitely established itself as a welcome part of this build. And to add in one more oddball wrinkle, one Familiar-Possessed-Aussa. And I'll get into her a little bit more in the video, but basically all you need to know about her is her effects are relevant. She is just here for the 1850 beat stick, and to be comboed with one other card that will explain a lot more on these monster choices. That is it for the monster lineup. On to the spells. For the traditional Gravekeeper form, we still run triple Necro Valley, triple Gravekeeper Steel, however it's pronounced, to facilitate the graveyard recursion, and one Royal Tribute. That one spell card that will never be banned, but at the same time will never go up from 1 for obvious reasons, on being able to nuke your opponent's hand whenever you want. And with Pendulum monsters in the game, this card is just a lot more vicious towards those decks. That's it for the spell lineup. Onto the traps. For the Gravekeeper side of things, we still run triple Imperial Tombs of Necro Valley. Kind of that de facto War Chariot, except for all effects for the Gravekeepers. And again, with the certain other tech card that I'll get to in a second, having the Necro Valley and a constant Gravekeeper on the field is a lot more viable in this build. So maxing out on triple of these to prevent as many effects as possible is extremely key. Excuse me. And speaking of Grave Recursion, can't run Call of the Haunts in here against our own Necro Valley, so Rites of Spirit is definitely a very good substitution to that. And the new main bloodline of this deck that definitely gives this deck a lot more versatility, I run triple Unpossessed. Now, for those of you that don't know what this card does, basically it has 3 effects. One being that your Charmer monsters cannot be destroyed by battle. That doesn't really help in this deck. Effect number 2, all your Familiar-Possessed cards, so when they attack, they get an additional 800 attack for damage calculation, which feeds into the beat stick ability of this monster a little bit. But the main reason why I run this card is its third ability. And that's once per turn, if a monster on your side of the field is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon another spellcaster type monster with 1500 exact defense, but a different attributes than the monster destroyed by battle or card effect, and special summon it straight to the field. And that effect is extremely relevant for this deck, not just for the Ejection Fairly and Aussa's 1500 defense powers, but for the Gravekeeper's side, you've also got Commandant at 1500 defense, Assailant 1500, Heretic 1500, Recruiter 1500. It provides a really good amount of surprise versatility with the build, and the ability to just combo on top of more plays to set up for what you need at the time. Unpossessed is an insanely good card for this build. I highly recommend trying this out for yourself. You'll be surprised at the good results. And then for the remainder of the supporter traps, we run double Mirror Force, 1 Solemn Warning, 1 Boundless Trap Hole. And because this build does depend on its back row a lot more and Twin Twisters all over the place, we run 1 Starlight Road for that type of protection, and to increase our odds of getting, say, a Stardust monster to the field to add in the protection needs for the deck. That's it for the main deck. On to the extra deck. We still run the standard 7 Utopia and the Utopia the Lightning, along with the Silent Anarch, the Gusto Emerald, Castell, Diamond Dyer, and Dark Rebellion Exceeds Dragon. Then for the supporter specific monsters for this build, We run 1 Evil Swarm Nightmare, tons of dark attribute to level 4 targets in this build, definitely needed for the control plays. 1 Perform Mage Trapeze Magician. Now granted, you don't run any Perform Mage monsters in here, but you do have tons of Spellcaster monsters, and its double attack for a 2500 beat stack is extremely relevant for this build to field those OTK plays if you run into them. 1 Gaga Cowboy for the surprise hits for game. I decided to test in 1 Windup Zen Master for this build, and mainly for the flip effect ability of Spy and how often you run into it, and I gotta admit, to be able to get those added recursion plays with Spy is extremely useful with Zen Meister on the field. Then between Injection Fill Lily and Gravekeeper's Recruiter, we do run a pretty decent amount of level 3s in the build. So for those other supporter Exceeds monsters, we run 1 Super Qual Mech get Grand Pulse for the spells and traps and the high defense. And 1 number 49 Nightmare Shark for those surprise direct attacks for those needed hits for the later parts of the game. And then for the final 2 slots, we run double Stardust Dragon. Why double? Because, well, A, I started running out of resources for all the builds that I have, and B, 1 for Starlight Road and 1 for Malefic. But for those of you who want to try this build out for yourself, and my qualms with Malefic Stardust that I mentioned earlier in this video, I would highly recommend for those of you that want to test without the Malefic to take out one of these stars from the extra deck zones, and then replace it with a Phantom Knight, or the new Phantom Knight break, nice Scrap Dragon Exceeds rank 3 right there, or Dante if you have some sort of a weird graveyard play that you want to try out with the build. I would easily swap this out for a much more usable rank 3 monster that would fit your needs. And with that, that is my new Gravekeeper deck profile. Hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, comment, rate, and subscribe. And until next time.